Time now for business. We say hello to Kate Moody, who's here to announce peace is breaking out between the U.S. and China.
Well, only the first phase of peace, unfortunately, Francois. Don't get too excited about it. But it's true that the Chinese delegation has arrived in Washington. They're ready to seal the agreement that put the brakes on any more tariffs between the world's two largest economies. The ceasefire was announced a month ago, but the details have yet to be published. Kemi Nedlek reports.
Please step back, please.
After 2 years, a breakthrough. The US and China are expected to sign a huge trade deal on Wednesday.
China-US economic and trade relations will make new progress on the basis of mutual benefits, which will not only be beneficial to China and the US, but also to the entire world.
Both sides have been reticent on the specifics, but according to the US, China has agreed to buy $200 billion more of American goods over 2 years, which includes around $75 billion worth of manufactured goods, along with services, agriculture, and $50 billion worth of energy, though analysts warn China doesn't have the infrastructure to cope with an influx of American oil. It's understood there'll also be provisions to protect the intellectual property rights of American companies, including addressing forced technology transfer, which compels American companies to share their know-how with local partners. If China doesn't hold up its end of the deal, the US could reimpose tariffs.
Okay, so I think it would be a fight, choose fight cycle between China and the United States, and so both sides will continue to try to build a strategic advantage against the other.
This is just phase one, but it comes during a politically charged time for US President Donald Trump as he woos voters ahead of running for his second term in November. He said phase two may not be concluded until after the election.
Meanwhile, Beijing has welcomed Washington's decision to remove it from a list of currency manipulators, insisting it has never been one. The Trump administration imposed the largely symbolic label back in August, accusing China of seeking an unfair advantage for its exports. The U.S. Treasury Secretary says that China has since made enforceable commitments to not competitively devalue the yuan. Well, investors around the world will be watching those trade developments closely. Wall Street's up sharply ahead of that signing. The Dow Jones up about 100 points. It has reached a new record high, crossing briefly over that 29,000 mark there. Delta Airlines, meanwhile, is seeing its shares up about 4% as its earnings were boosted by lower fuel costs and strong demand. Earlier, we saw the major European indices also closing upwards, just above the flat line there. Across the board, FTSE 100, CAC 40, and DAX all with gains of less than 0.10%, rather. Well, the car makers Renault and Nissan have denied reports that their alliance is in trouble, reaffirming their commitment to the 20-year-old partnership. Both companies have suffered since the arrest of the alliance's architect, Carlos Ghosn, on charges of financial misconduct at Nissan, all of those charges which he denies. The French government, which is a major stakeholder in Renault, says that a new chief executive could be named within days to help steer the company into the next chapter. Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire dismissed that report of trouble at the alliance as malicious rumors.
People can look for its origin, but that doesn't interest me. It's malicious information. I don't believe it. They were rumors made to destabilize the group, create uncertainty at a moment where, on the contrary, we're straightening up the alliance between Renault and Nissan, which, it's true, went through great difficulties.
Moving on to some of the day's other business headlines now. German prosecutors have brought fraud charges against 6 more former executives at Volkswagen. They're accused of intentionally misleading customers in the US and Europe to buy cars with rigged emissions software. 11 individuals, including former CEO Martin Winterkorn, have now been charged in relation to the carmaker's diesel emissions scandal. Dozens more are still under investigation. JP Morgan Chase has reported record profits for the fourth quarter, rising 21% to top $8.5 billion. The investment bank was boosted by strong trading results and a brightening economic outlook. Other American banks will be reporting their earnings throughout the week. And French supermarket chain Auchan will cut some 500 jobs. The restructuring calls for the voluntary departure of office and support staff, not those working in stores. Like its rival Carrefour, Auchan is struggling to adapt to customers' new shopping habits, which include more online orders and a switch to local providers rather than hypermarkets. Finally, the world's biggest money manager says it's doubling down on the fight against climate change. BlackRock says that in the coming months, it will cut down its investments in companies that earn more than a quarter of their revenue from coal production. BlackRock manages some $7 trillion worth of assets. Environmental activists welcomed the move with caution, but said they would wait to see action to back up that rhetoric. CEO Larry Fink writing that he expects a, quote, fundamental reshaping of finance as corporations try to balance profits with their promises to go green. And he said that climate change is the top issue that clients raise with BlackRock. Francois, climate is certainly going to be one of the top issues at next week's Davos, the World Economic Forum, kicking off with the theme Stakeholders for a Cohesive and Sustainable World. We'll be looking to see if we can see more concrete steps coming from the likes of BlackRock in the week to come.
All right, and we'll be talking about that switch to renewables as well in the debate. Many thanks, Kate Moody.